Welcome to the Credit Show on KDON. I'm Harry Jacobs. Credit Restoration of Nevada is our company. Tell you where you can find us in just a couple minutes, how you can get an appointment set up, how you can get your credit looked at for free. We do all that. The analysis work initially is free. And if you don't need us, again, I say this all the time, about 40% of the people that come to us, we end up turning away because there are things that you can do on your own. We all know that there are things in any, area of life that we can all do ourselves, minus, brain surgery and medical stuff. I mean, with limited exception, there's very little that we can't do to help ourselves. Credit is one of those as well. And if we can maybe help you start that process and you can finish it on your own, that's great. If you need our help, that's fine too. But the initial analysis of your credit to see what's going on and where you may need us, that's at no cost to you. So I'll give you the website in a minute, give you the phone number in a minute. We're here every weekend on KDON, 8 to 9 on Saturday morning is when the show airs live. And then we pop up at different times through the weekend. If you're a podcast person, a lot of people do the podcasts. I do it myself once in a while and got a couple that I listen to. You can find us on the iTunes store. Just punch in Credit Restoration of Nevada. Just Credit Restoration of Nevada, and you'll find us right there. By the way, you don't need to leave your home or your office to have us look at your credit. We can do every bit of it online. We can do a little net meeting. I can give you a link. You can get into my computer, and I'll show you around your credit report. Give you the good, the bad, and the ugly on your credit report. So the website, CR, like Credit Restoration, crnevada.com. And on the site, you'll find all kinds of information. There are resources there for you. Information on, if you want to hire us, what we have available for packages for you there. You can also find some videos about credit. You'll see me talking on the news and in various places. I was on the show Sister Wives. There's a clip of that. Help them get into 4 homes together here in Southern Nevada, and there's just a bunch of different resources for you there. So check that out. The website, crnevada.com. Book an appointment with me. Get your credit report from Identity IQ. Whatever you need to get rolling. And the phone number for us, 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. And you can text the word credit to us. And we'll respond back. Look for your first and last name and an email address. And I'll send you an email right away. Last week, in the middle of the show, I brought up credit scores and the makeup of credit scores. And I said, I'm going to talk about this. It was kind of an off-the-cuff remark. And by the time I get to the end of the show, I realized that I didn't get to it. So it's really where I want to start today, is to talk to you about the 5 factors that make up your credit score. It's one of those things that's confusing to folks. Your credit score is this, it's a numerical figure that represents everything on your credit report, right? It signifies, your risk level to financial institutions, that people that may, allow you to borrow from them. Creditors can expect, how you will perform as a client based on your history of managing credit. There's so much in the way of factors that goes into, credit these days. You look at insurance and jobs and, applying for a credit card or increases or mortgages or any of those things. They're all tied to your credit. You want to do solar, you want to do some improvements on your home. There's generally always a credit option for you. So there are a bunch of different types of credit scores too. Each of them is based on, it's proprietary information at the bureau level, obviously. Nonetheless, the following 5 things are what make up your credit score. And think about it like it's a grade, right? Think about being back in school when you had your first day of class with a teacher, and the teacher said, "Hey, listen, this is what is going to make up your grade this semester. This is how we're going to get to to the end for you and what you need to do and what you should understand about how your grade will be made up at the end of the day. So the most important thing on your credit, this is one that I talk about all the time, 35% of your credit score is made up by your payment history. The way you handle your bills. It's critically important. Have they reported you as missing a payment, late? Are you paying things on time? Are you paying more than your monthly minimum? All those things are taken into that piece of it, your payment history. The frequency of delinquencies obviously has an impact as well. You can have one late payment, which impacts your score, or you can have 3, 4, 5. I mean, you see, all kinds of different things every time I look at different credit reports. Other things that are related to payment history that impact your score include, accounts that are sent off to collections. Did an account charge off? Did it get to the point where the creditor said, we can't do anything further. We can't help you. You're not responding to us, whatever it is. So they're going to send it to a collection agency. That will impact your credit score. That is figured into the algorithms that are used to figure out the scoring of your credit. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I've got a judgment or I've got a tax lien on my credit. Those are no longer on your credit report. So a couple of years ago, that all stopped. So if you've got a judgment or a tax lien, the only place you will see them is when a mortgage broker pulls your credit report. That's when those show up. And, we used to be able to get rid of them when they were on, normal consumer reports. Like if you went to go buy a car or get a credit card, we could get those removed. They no longer show up on those reports. So that's good news. Also, a bankruptcy will impact your credit history. That figures into the mix. A foreclosure and any sort of default that you have will figure into that 35% of your credit score, which is payment history. Right? The next most important topic, not most important topic, but the next most important factor in terms of the makeup of your credit score is your credit usage. And this is something that comes up often on this show. 30% of your credit score is based upon your usage of credit. So that is the ratio of current balances versus the amount of credit that's available to you, right? So if you've got a $10,000 credit card and you owe $3,000 on it, you have 30% usage. The goal, by the way, is to have that down at 10% or below. I do not subscribe to the theory that you should have always $5 or $10 or something on a credit card. If you could pay it off, pay it off. Right, but 30% of your score is based on how you're using your revolving credit. The other thing is there are people, by the way, that pay their credit cards every month that will show that their credit cards have a higher volume than what's actually there after they pay their bill. And the reason for that is because they're not paying the day the statement closes or prior to that. The way that you will get the biggest impact on this credit usage piece of it, if you're someone that pays your bills every month or pays your credit card every month, pay your credit card bill a day or two prior to when the statement closes. And that will allow you to show the lowest possible balance. So that's something that I speak about often, and I think it's important. You want to be able to get the most bang for your buck on that. Then just pay those quickly before the statement closes, and do not max your credit cards out. By the way, that's just a score killer. That can cost you if you're an 800 credit score person, you max out a credit card, it can cost you 110, 115 points. It's pretty brutal. The next most important factor in your credit history, the makeup of your credit score, is the length of history. And that is the age of an account. Right? You don't ever want to get rid of accounts that are old. 15% of your score is based on that. You could close an account that you haven't used in any real way that's 5 or 10 years old and have an impact on your credit score. If you've got an account that's old, I don't care what the available credit is on it or how much you use it, but if you've got something that's, 5, 7, 8, 10 years old or older, don't ever close that account. Use it for, go have lunch once a month and use it or do something with it. But that will impact your score. That's 15% of your credit score. That's important. I would not close anything that's got any age to it. I have these conversations with folks all the time. And the last two items that make up your credit score, 10% is new credit. So every time you submit an application for credit, a potential lender or financial institution is going to pull your report and get your scores. And then it's recorded on your report as a hard inquiry. And if you get a new account, it can take 6 to 8 months for that account to season. Meaning, let's say you apply, today for a new credit card, and you're given that new credit card, or you go out today and you buy a new car or a new house. I don't care what it is. You have a credit score from yesterday. Maybe it's a 750. After your credit is pulled and your account opens up, your credit score may go down to 730 or 735 or 725. It depends. All part of the algorithms in terms of how they put those scores together. But your score will drop when you get a new account, when you add a new account to your credit. And the last factor, the final factor, the 5 things that make up your credit score, 10% is types of credit. The different types of accounts that you hold, meaning loans, credit cards, mortgages, all that stuff, they make up the remaining 10% of your score. A healthy mix of accounts is beneficial to your credit report. And that does include installment accounts like cars or a mortgage. Those things. And revolving accounts, credit cards, department store credit cards, or regular bank credit cards. Ultimately, your lenders want to see that you can handle the various types of debt that you have responsibly. So those are the 5 factors. 35% payment history, 30% credit usage, 15% is length of history, 10% is new credit, and 10% is types of credit. If you've got questions about this, or you want to talk about it, or you've got anything you need in terms of credit information, obviously I want to hear from you, and I want to help you if I can help you. Pick up the phone and call us, 702-778-2000. Or you can text us, by the way. Text the word credit to 702-778-2000. This is The Credit Show on KDON. We're back on The Credit Show on KDON every Saturday morning, 8 to 9, our new time on 101.5 KDON. The podcasts can be heard. Same show, just as a podcast. The Apple iTunes store. Just punch up Credit Restoration of Nevada, and you'll find us that way. 50-plus shows are there. You want to get us in the office, 702-778-2000. That analysis of your credit happens in real time. Happy to help you with anything you need. Website is crnevada.com. Couple ways to get us. Set an appointment up. I can talk to you today. You tell me what you need, and we're happy to help. And if it's nothing but advice, then that's fine too. My counsel is always free for you. Been doing this, a dozen years or so. FICO certifications and various things along the way, but nothing like the experience of looking at 20 to 50 credit reports in any given week. Right? I've seen just about everything. I guarantee you, I challenge you, nothing that you show me or tell me will surprise me, and I'll probably have an answer for you and some help. But you got to start with a call or a text. That's first, right? Tell me you need my help. 702-778-2000. Text the word credit, or just talk to the front desk, and they'll find me for you. Easy. One of the things that comes up often with folks that have been afraid of credit or just never really used credit is they have what's called a thin credit file. That just means there's not much there. That's an expression that you'll hear in the finance world and the credit world. People have a thin credit file. It's relatively easy to fix it. Honestly, one of my favorite things to do that we do is take people that have no credit, that haven't used their credit in years, and we help to fix their credit and get them a boost, and we do that immediately. And this is the only place where I will generally guarantee a credit score, right? So you take someone that's got a 500 credit score and no credit history. That's the issue with no credit, is you end up with a bad credit score. As a result of that, you've got stuff that's just old and nothing but old stuff on there. We get a large volume of people that have just been off the radar and don't know where to start. We get a ton of these folks. And what we do, instead of saying, listen, don't, stop panicking. We can help you. It's easy to do this. You don't have to wait a year or a year and a half. But you do need credit, by the way. You don't need to go the Ramsey route. You should have some sort of credit. It's important to have it. So what we do is we put what's called a trade line on your credit. So when someone has nothing there and we put the trade line on there, generally that score is never lower than 730. So how'd you like to go from, 500 credit to 730, literally overnight? Depending upon when we add this for you, it can be days or just, weeks to get that boost to happen. It's quick. We've got a couple big lines of credit that we have access to. It's an easy way to boost that score. Even if you've got a credit history, but some negatives there that we need to work on, you need some other help, a trade line can help you, and we can do that immediately. Think about it like this. It's a synthetic boost to your credit score. It's a way to prop you up. It's like teaching a kid how to ride a bicycle, right? You put those training wheels on there, and you let them get comfortable pedaling and steering and controlling the bike, braking, etc. And then you pull those wheels off eventually, and you let them go on their own. And we do the same thing with the trade line. It's on there for a period of time, and then we pull it off, and by that time you have applied for and have gotten a credit card or two on your own, or bought a car on your own. Very simple process that you would go through in order to make that happen and boost your score. Simple and quick, by the way. But just like anything else I talk about on the show, if you want more info or you want to do it, you got to start by picking up the phone and calling or shooting us a text. Shoot me a text. 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. Or check the website out, crnevada.com. You can book an appointment with me right there, and we can have a call. And if you want to, you're listening to the show here live over the weekend, just call and they'll track me down. I'll call you after the show. Happy to help you, whatever it may be. But if you've got no credit, do not panic. We can help you. And do it easily and reasonably for you. One of the things I hear a lot of when people call, they say, well, I've got bad credit, not really because of anything really bad, just some small accounts that are creating an issue. A couple things that went bad, but not a big deal. It's easy for you, if you don't have much knowledge of how credit scoring is handled and what's important and what's not, to think that something could be a small account and not a big deal. It's the main reason that I want to see your credit. I want to see your credit. A lot of times someone will call and say, I've got this and I've got that, and, what are you going to charge me to fix my credit? Well, I'm not going to do anything or say anything ever until I have a chance to say, let me look at your credit. If I had $5 for every time I had to have that discussion with someone, you can't call a mechanic and say, well, I've got a problem. I need I got to fix a tie rod end, my front end. I've got, an oil pump that may be bad, or a starter or whatever. They're going to generally want you to bring the car in. Why are they going to want to do that? They're going to want to see it for their own eyes. This is the same way that when you call and set an appointment up, I would like to see your credit report before you come in. So that way we can have an educated conversation, an intellectual conversation, if you will, about your credit report and your scores. And when I explain it to folks like that, they generally say, oh, okay, that makes sense. See, there are companies that you'll find out there that will just sign you on and start to work on your credit right away. They don't even care if they can fix it or not, whether they can have an impact. I happen to think that's wrong, and it's not a good way to do business. I happen to feel like you don't take anyone on as a client unless you know that you can have an impact. And if you can have an impact, explain what the expectations should be. And if you can't, explain that as well. There are plenty of people that we send away. Plenty of people, by the way, that can do their own work. But there are people that just aren't good candidates for us. As a consumer, your interpretation of what's on your credit report and what you think is going on versus my interpretation, my analysis, my opinion. Your opinion and my opinion are apples and cinder blocks in many cases. One of the things that differentiates me and this company from others is that I've been through and certified by FICO. Not many people in our industry have that. Certainly no one in Vegas. So when people say, I've just got something small on my credit, that's what started this little rant. They may say, oh, I've got an old credit card that went bad. It was just a few $100, but it's not a big deal. I just want to pay it and get it off my credit report. Well, those pay to delete things don't happen on credit card accounts. We've got ways to do that, and we can work those for you. But it's not as simple as just saying, well, I'm gonna pay it and they'll delete it. That's not the world we live in now. There are compliance agreements that the credit bureaus have signed and force creditors to sign as well. They countersign them. That say if an account is accurate, you can't remove it from a credit report. By the way, there's nothing in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is what has set up the credit reporting system and governs the system, rather, that states an account must be reported by a creditor. These compliance agreements are separate from the Fair Credit Reporting Agreement, and Fair Credit Reporting Act. Those are between the furnishers of information, your creditors, and the credit bureaus. That's how that works. They get them to sign a separate agreement. But there's no law that states something has to be reported. There are plenty of people that have things that should be on their credit that aren't. And they wonder why. They say, well, my mortgage doesn't report, or my car doesn't report, or, whatever it is, may not report. There are some credit card companies that are second chance credit card companies that'll give you a credit card, and you have to pay them a monthly fee so that they will report on your credit. There's no law against that. By the way, you don't have to pay them a fee if you're late, because they're happy to report that you're late and you missed payments. They'll report that information for you at no cost to you. That was me speaking sarcastic. But that's how that works. I think I know the name of one of those companies. I don't want to give it in case I'm wrong, but I think it's one of the big national companies that does that. But there are no, real small accounts. You could have a small medical bill. You could have an 800 credit score and have a $50 medical bill cost you 110 points on your credit. That's how crazy it is. And that's how important, I talked about the makeup of credit score in the last segment. That's how critical managing your credit is. And you may be someone that says, well, it's a $50 credit, a $50 bill collection, whatever. I'm not going to pay it out of principal. Is $50 worth your credit? I would say the answer to that is probably no. Probably no. And if the answer isn't definitely no, then you and I need to have a conversation about the importance of credit. Matter of fact, I'm going to do something in the next segment. I'm going to make a note right now to remind myself to talk about how credit is important and why it's important. And a little info on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, what they had to do with the credit bureaus. Force their hand to do things a certain way, to be in compliance, if you will. Give you some information on how to get us. First, the website, crnevada.com. CR like credit restoration, crnevada.com. Book an appointment there, get your credit report. Link to Identity IQ is there. Or just pick up the phone and call the office. Easy to do that as well. 702-778-2000. You can also text that number, 702-778-2000. Our company is Credit Restoration of Nevada. And this is the Credit Show on KDON. We're back on the Credit Show on KDON. Saturday mornings, 8 to 9 on 101.5 FM, KDWN. On the Apple Podcast app as well, anytime you want. Just find us there, Credit Restoration of Nevada. Website, crnevada.com. Phone number, 702-778-2000. I was blabbing in the last segment about small accounts and what matters and what doesn't matter on credit reports, and a consumer's interpretation of what's on your credit versus my interpretation, it being apples and cinder blocks in many cases. And I said I wanted to touch on why credit was important again. It's one of my favorite topics to touch on. It's something that's so critical to us as a society, for better or worse. Whether you believe in it or not, whether you think it's right or wrong, doesn't matter. What matters is that you understand why it's important, and if you want to do the things which credit allows you to do, listen, even get a job, right? We're in a city where a lot of people are handling a lot of cash. No last call. Bars are open 24/7. We got bars in every corner. Gaming. I get a ton of people that come to us that are in gaming that need help. Credit's important. Often they don't come to us until, they're going to need them to get a clearance level or to get approved for a job before they apply for a job. But we as a population, we bury our heads often about credit. When I started doing this a dozen years ago, the statistics were that about half of the population would check their credit every year. We're down to a quarter of the population. I think it's like 22%. It's dropped more than 50% in a dozen years. But less than a quarter of the population checks their credit annually now. And it's so important. Minimally for a job, potentially. And you may be sick of this expression, but I use it all the time. Credit is your adult report card. Jobs, where we live, auto insurance, the cars we drive, the interest we pay on cars and mortgages. Did a big thing on the cost of money in the last couple of weeks. If you didn't hear it, it's on our, the podcast. Just go to that Apple Podcast app and find Credit Restoration of Nevada, and you'll hear that. The importance of the cost of money. All these things I mentioned. Cars and mortgages and jobs and auto insurance, all this stuff, solar, whatever you want to do. Getting utilities or cable TV, all that stuff, cell phones. It's all tied to your credit. The average credit score in Nevada is like 657 or something along those lines. Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, and New Mexico are the worst, in the 650 or below range. And there are a lot of mistakes on credit reports. We've known that for a long time. And when you look at the data that the credit bureaus are dealing with on a monthly basis, it is no wonder that people have issues that are actual mistakes. Not what you think is a mistake, but actual mistakes. And with what's at stake, I got to say, why wouldn't you even, just take a look at your credit? We can do that for you at no cost. I think it's $1 for the first 7 days to do Identity IQ. You can cancel it after that. So for $1 and 10 or 15 minutes of your time, I can look at your credit and tell you what's going on for free. Even, by the way, if you think you're someone with good credit. I had 2 or 3 calls after last week's show, people that said, I have good credit, but I'm doing this or I'm doing that. Can you look at it for me? The answer is always yes. Always a resounding yes. The credit bureaus house data on 202 million individual consumers. They get 4 billion updates a month from 30,000 different companies that furnish information. It's a lot. There's some crazy math in that. We had Matt Graham on the show a lot, a mortgage guy in town. I think it's been over a year or something since I've had him on last. But I remember giving that statistic once that there were 202 million, files on different consumers. The bureaus get 4 billion updates a month from 30,000 different subscribers, or from 30,000 different companies that furnish information. And out of the blue, he says, well, that's about 7.5 items on a credit report. Like, just doing the math on that. And then he gave me some information on accounts. And like, how do you do that? How do you do that math that quick? But, the bureaus don't even open their own mail. There was a story on 60 Minutes Steve Croft did, talking to 3 former Experian employees. They have machines that open the mail. They get so many disputes. They're not even read, these disputes are not even read by a person. They're scanned and given a 3-digit code. That's how crazy it is. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, this was set up after the '08 collapse. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they govern anything finance related for consumers, including the credit bureaus. At one point, several years ago, they had to issue a bulletin to the credit bureaus and to banks and to credit card companies and anyone that furnishes information to a consumer, or about a consumer rather, to a credit bureau, that they need to conduct a thorough investigation when a consumer submits a dispute. Everything is automated, computerized, digitized. Disputes are just coded, and a lot of times they're not even forwarded to the people that furnish the information. You got to complain about, Capital One or Ally or, someone. Often they don't get forwarded. So when someone comes to us after months and months or years of trying to get things fixed, saying, I give up, I say, I hear you. I deal with that all the time. I get calls every day from people who've said, I've tried to do this and I try to do that, and I got a credit guy, do this or do that. Let us do the work for you. Take a deep breath and step back. Our system, by the way, and anyone that has access to it, meaning you as a consumer, will get a portal to see where you started and where you are now and what's happening, what's on our radar, what's getting worked on. It's simple. Simple to do that. I had a call this week from someone. And, listen, I don't ever want to make fun of anyone or poke at anyone, but this person called and the credit report was rough. It was what I would call a busy report. And she said, I used to have this woman that fixed my credit for me all the time. And I'm thinking, if it's getting fixed all the time, there may be, something wrong with what she's doing. But be that as it may, tell me more. And I'm looking at her credit report, and it's busy. It's busy AF. And the kids will say that AF. Yeah, if I can't tell you what it means, but if you know anything, you'll about what the kids say. And I know very little, but busy AF. So this woman said to me, well, the woman that used to fix my credit said that it's illegal for any company that doesn't own the debt that they're chasing you about to actually call you and try to collect that debt. I said, repeat that for me. And she said, well, it's, this woman said it's illegal for these companies that don't own that debt. So I had a Capital One credit card that's owned by Portfolio as an example. It's illegal for Portfolio to call me to collect that debt or to collect it. And I said, I'm a little bit flummoxed by this. I'm confused by why someone would tell someone that. I said the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act was signed into law in the early 70s. That law was put into place to protect consumers from people that don't own the debts but are what are called third parties, third-party debt collectors. This entire statute, this entire law was put into place for third parties to protect you and to protect them. It is not illegal for a third party to collect a debt that they don't own or they didn't originate, that didn't originate with them. That's what that law was put into place for. People get advice from the craziest places. My doctor pal, Dr. Abraham Fakori, great doctor, by the way. Fakori has this mug on his desk that says, "Don't confuse your Google with my medical degree," which I think is hysterical. Listen, I'm guilty of that too. Something happens, I got a pain, I got this, I got that. I look up before I call the doc. I look on Google and see what I may have. I remember I can't remember specifically what he said, but he said, well, it could be this and this and this, which are fatal, or it could be this. He said, why don't you stay off Google and just come to why don't you just come see me? I said, okay, that's fine. Turned out it wasn't fatal, obviously. It was some years ago. Don't confuse your Google with my medical degree. I don't have a medical degree, but I'm certified by FICO, and I understand credit as well as the next, guy. Better than the next guy, I should say. And what I do know is that it is not illegal for third parties to collect on you if you owe a debt that they own or are servicing. They own it because they bought it from the people who were the original creditors. That's the terminology in the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. The original creditor sold that debt off to somebody because you didn't pay. Well, that's all I'm saying. Just be careful where you get your information. And the importance of credit can't be underestimated. It's critical. The better your credit is, the lower your fees will be when you go buy a car. Fees meaning paying interest. The cost of money in any given deal is just so critical. You want to pay as little as possible to borrow money from someone. That's all. It's a simple process. Our website, if you want to reach us, I'm out of time. Our website is crnevada.com, like credit restoration, crnevada.com. Book an appointment with me. Set a time for us to talk, get a credit report through Identity IQ. Or call us or text us at 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. Text the word credit. This is The Credit Show on KDON.